So I am really, really excited for today's speaker. If you know Christin, you love her. She is an incredible force in this community. She is one of the smartest people that I know, and she is impacting small business owners every single day. So I am really excited for her to share her story with us. It is going to be so moving and so incredible. So please help me welcome Christin Cherry.
All right, guys, thank you. It feels a bit dramatic. um, well, today we are going to talk about navigating life's roller coasters as soon as that slide pulls up. And I have a question for you guys. Who here seems to be comparing their life to a roller coaster these days? Let me hear it. Let's hear it in the room. Yes, okay. All right, you're in good company. I'm in good company. So I'm Christin Cherry, and I am a serial entrepreneur, lover of life, yes. And I have been navigating this crazy roller coaster for roughly 15 years. And I have recently gained a new perspective to that wild roller coaster that I wanted to share with you guys today. But before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about what brings me on this stage through my lens. So my entrepreneurial journey started back in 2009. As a photographer, I turned my passion, news, yeah, is that new to you? So I really enjoyed the creativity of photography and figured I could turn it into a business. And it was eye-opening for me in a lot of ways because I am trying to freshen up the skill of photography, but I figured out I had to learn this whole other skill that you need to know as an entrepreneur. So it was a really good learning for me, and it was really a lot of fun. So it made the entrepreneurial start very enjoyable for me because it was deep within my passion. I am a busy person, if you guys have not noticed. So at the same time, I joined forces with my husband to start a fitness boot camp. And it was a lot of fun. And what happened was my husband is an active duty Marine at this time. So we have to move around every 3 to 4 years. Okay? And for whatever reason, the photography one didn't move with me, but the boot camp did. And we found ourselves in Florida, Pace, Florida, starting this whole boot camp thing again. Okay? And what I now know today, it was a very impulsive thing for such a big part of my life, but it really did a lot of cool things. So that boot camp in the park, that's a picture of one of the parks that we were in, a much nicer park than the one we started in, I can assure you. And we eventually grew from that boot camp in the park to a 3,000 square foot permanent location, which if you are a remote business owner, like a brick and mortar is just cool. That's I've made it. I won't talk about how terrified I was to hand over that check to pay the guy in hopes that it would actually not withdraw the next time. So we had this thing figured out. My husband was on the marketing front. I was front and center, just loving inspiring these women. And it was like wildfire. We quickly, within months, we had to move to a location twice the size because we were busting out the seam. Imagine warehouse, doors rolled up, and people literally having to go outside of the location to work out. That's how big this was. It was really cool. So the really cool part is friends and family saw what we were doing, and they're like, I want to do that. That looks like a lot of fun. So we came up to an impossible decision in 2015. My husband, the Marine, yes, active duty at the time. So if you don't know how the Marine Corps works, when you're serving, you can fully retire full pension at 20 years. And he was around 15. So do the math. He is 35 years old, under 35 years old, and can retire in 5 years. That's a pretty sweet gig. And he did a lot of really cool things in the Marine Corps. But it was hard for our family. He deployed back to back to Iraq, leaving us and our small kids, that's my children up there, constantly. And it just felt like he was away more than he was home. So that lifestyle, as much as we loved a lot of the perks of being in the Marine Corps, it was hard. And at the same time, this really cool business starts just coming alive. And again, we're changing lives. It's not just this business, money in, money out. It is impacting people that are impacting people that are impacting people. At this point in 2015, this mission, this thing had caught the attention of a very large investment firm, and we had lots of meetings with them, and they ended up purchasing the rights to the entire state of California. By far, the biggest check I had ever seen at that point in my life. So we had to choose between the Marine Corps, the lifestyle that we had been so accustomed to, at the verge of being able to retire and have the freedom to choose what's next in our life. But we didn't do that. We chose that really crazy entrepreneurial dream. And it was hard. It was a hard decision because of the obvious, but then it also had the aspect of our family's support. That was hard. And listen, if you guys are entrepreneurs, you've probably encountered this at some point in your life. Your family's terrified for you. But listen, it's not their fault. They're just scared, and they don't know what you know. We knew what we knew, so we moved forward. And then family came around. They came around. But it was definitely tough. So the Marine Corps also works very slowly, in case you haven't been aware. Just know that. It took us 16 months for him to say, I'm ready to get out, to getting out of the Marine Corps. But in the meantime, they had stationed him in California. We were still in Florida. So in this picture is 3 different teams I was managing. We had 2 physical boot camp locations at this point, fully staffed at the time. Then we had a headquarters location that I was managing that supported all of those satellite boot camps. And my poor husband, Josh, he would wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, host calls with us, do his full-time Marine Corps job, and then finish off the day with us, remote. A lot harder back in 2016 than today. So it was not an easy time of our life. And you could say we're glutton for punishment because at the same time of all of this happening, that picture is of me filming, getting ready for our online launch for these boot camps. The picture of me speaking is an annual conference we hold. We take all of those people in Delta Life and we bring them to a conference and host that. Who's probably going to be at the head of that, the one that's drowning in life. But it was fun and invigorating, so it just really made it worth it. And there's one more picture on that screen. You see those kiddos up there painting the wall? The most important job, a mom. And at this point, a single mom with my husband states away. It was hard. It was difficult. But we survived. Okay? We're here. But this meant no more really comfy paycheck for Christin and Josh to play with this business. It meant we had to get real. We just handed over a very long career to do this. So we buckled up. We franchised this business with help of a consultant and some other mentors. It moved us to Texas. This is home for us, so we couldn't get back here fast enough, but as soon as he got out of the Marine Corps, he did come back to Florida. We relocated to Texas. Our consultant recommended it. And that boot camp in the park turned into that. Thank you. World-class franchise. If I could tell you how many times we would say that, we were like speaking it into existence. It was going to happen, damn it. And it did, and it really did. So these are multiple locations. These are multiple ribbon cuttings of the franchisees that owned those. We went from a boot camp in the park. That equipment you saw in that picture, that came from a garage sale. We didn't have anything when we started this business, like nothing. I don't remember what ranking it was whenever we started this business, but you can go and look up online how much like E3 makes. You'd be like, whoa. So we started this with literal dirt, created a system that made it profitable, and then figured out how to double that up states away, how to bring in really simple operations to a business to make that business owner be able to create their dream. It was really cool. It was really cool. And by the way, people were paying $50,000 just to do that. Nothing else, $50,000 to come fly to us. I'm like 30. I'm like late 20s, early 30s, and these big people, they just spent $50,000 to come fly for me to teach them how to run this. It was wild. Like, it can't even like looking back at this is mind-boggling to me. So we were exploding. We were getting a lot of attention from a lot of people. So we had the investment company purchase the entire state of Florida, but now we had two really big investors at the corporate level. So we were getting a lot of attention, a lot of traction, and we were up to over 55 of these across the United States. So as you can imagine, attention, all the pizzazz, we get an offer for this business. A really big offer. I don't know what I thought when we started this business, but I just thought, well, that sounds fun. Let's do it. Probably like a lot of you guys. And there's some hard times and some bad times, but honestly, it was so easy to overlook those with this business because it was so empowering. But we got that big offer. And when I think about the lives that we had impacted, let's go to that next one. When I think about those lives that we impacted, I didn't want to give that up. Like, there was no money. There was absolutely no money that you could pay me to give that up. Trust me, it was a pretty big one. We had built that from the ground up. We figured out how to duplicate it. I was flying states away to be able to train those ladies on that screen. And when you would get there, they were just ready to change lives. It was cool. And they had their own stories and how they had been changing lives. And so it was like this ripple effect. It was really cool. It created a wave. It created this mission. And of course, that came to a screeching halt when COVID happened. I don't have to tell you guys what that sounds like. I know you felt the same. But I want you to notice that date. That was like 6 months after we turned down that money. So we went from a business worth millions to a business we had no idea what was going to happen next. You can't see it maybe, but you could just see like our eyes. When I found this picture, I had to go to Facebook and I was like, whew, those are tired looking individuals. That was our leadership team. So you guys experience the same thing we did, but our dynamic was two businesses. When you're at the franchise level, you created a brand, you created a model that works. Okay, but then when you created the franchise, it was a whole nother business. It's not how to work out, it's how to make businesses successful. Okay, so we had to do that on two fronts while we had a lot of people that had invested a lot of time, all their savings, and their family supported or was supported by these businesses. Can I just say how heavy that is? That's heavy. Remember those investors that I told you about? They don't come up too much in this story because I'd like to forget that they even existed, but they don't. They did exist, and they started getting really weird because what I now know today is people of that level wealth, and when I say investors, I'm not talking small. I'm talking very big. What I know today is people at that wealth, they really just care about how they got there and what it took to get there. And let me just tell you, human emotion isn't involved a whole lot. I won't go into details, but they declined offers. They declined meetings, board meetings. They pulled paychecks. We had to fire people. It was not a fun time. And I thought that 16 months of being that single mom was hard. That like pales in comparison to this 18 months of fighting tooth and nail inside of my company to save it. Could you imagine? They literally blocked us in every possible way to save this business. And our children and our parents had a front row seat. That's hard. It was a Monday morning when my husband and I created the email to turn over our shares for this entire company. Over 10 years, blood, sweat, tears, a lot of lessons. And just like that, one email, you push send, it's gone. I woke up Tuesday morning to this. My whole life was in that email. My family photos, my mortgage package. I couldn't have access to the last 10 years of my life. That is hard. This brand meant more than the money ever could. And the people that run that business today only care about one thing. Well, if you thought that was a hard time, then we enter in this next phase of my life where I'm mourning the loss of my business and now have to look to mourn about my father. See, he was on the transplant list. He was doing okay. He got worse. The liver quits working, the kidneys, next. And I remember the call that my sister gave me one day. And she said, Dad's being lifelined to the hospital to Houston. He's flatlined a few times. I thought losing a business was hard. I was not prepared for this, even a little bit. Those days literally felt like months. I went back to look at this timeline to make sure I wasn't misspeaking, because time is weird as an entrepreneur. And it was literally days, but it felt like months of me waiting for him to get that transplant. And he was number one at the list at this point right here. He did get the transplant. He's okay. But it was the beginning of something, I think worse. I don't know. It was not a fun next step, because this is where I learned PTSD is real in transplant patients. That man is the John Wayne of dads, if I could describe my father. Strong. Just so strong. He grew up on a farm. He hadn't had the easiest life, so he's mentally strong too. But he struggled because he was just skin and bones. He couldn't eat or drink. That thing was in his mouth for a very long time. He couldn't lift his head off the pillow. He could not take his hand from the bed to put it on his leg. He had zero strength. He was skin and bones. And he would just look at you like, help me. And that is hard as a daughter. He did pull through. It was a journey, but he did pull through. And he learned how to walk again. He's walking around his 50 acres just fine. But I learned something, a new perspective that I had to figure out. And the first perspective is know your self-worth. It's literally your unshakable foundation that not only helps you survive, but also thrive in the world. You have to do work there. I lost mine whenever I lost my company. Most of my adult years was tied up in this business, and so I didn't know anything else. When I lost a business, I was worthless. The franchisees didn't know what to do. They didn't know what happened, so they were terrified to reach out to me, so it really messed with my head. And I watched my dad wake up, open his eyes, looked confused when he realized what had happened, because he was asleep. He was in a coma for quite some time. He was so confused. And the day that he was able to express to me what he was confused about broke my heart. He goes, "They saved me. They did everything they could to save me." And I thought, well, yeah, Dad, you're human. He was genuinely confused that he was worthy enough to be saved. Yeah, that's true. So I learned that lesson. The next one I learned was resilience. It's part of your journey. Embrace it. I can say that now, embrace it. If you guys want to do big things, I assume you in this room want to do big things, you're going to experience a lot of hard times. But it's really part of the journey that I realize now. So my dad would call me after he got out of the hospital, and he would update me on his appointments. And it was like a badge of honor. One, he defied death. He was like, I came back from the dead twice. It was like this badge of honor. And he would call, and his numbers would increase, and he would just be like, yes, better numbers today, so excited. I get the call, and he says, well, got cancer again. Just like that. And I'm like, wait, what? What? Wait, your numbers were good. Anyway, he's fine. He did have cancer again, but it was like a little speed bump for him this time. He was like, no problem. The last thing is purpose. This one was probably the hardest for me. So I was so incredibly tied to that business purpose because for most of the time that I even knew what purpose meant, it was tied to that business. Again, when you lose it, you're like, you feel like you're flailing there in the emptiness. And I didn't know what mine was. I didn't have it anymore. However, when I think about you when you're left with nothing, you're literally left in a hospital bed with nothing. You can't even feed yourself. He had something within him that he knew his purpose was him. It's there, and there's still something on this planet to do. It wasn't an external thing. It was from within. And that was very eye-opening. It was very powerful. So, your power comes from within, guys, if you didn't know. I just found this out. So around this time, Randy Lovelace posted a quote on Facebook, and there's something called a lollipop moment. There's a TED Talk on it, but this was a lollipop moment. You never even knew what happened. You just post it. And the quote, maybe I'm messing this up a little bit, but it says, "A bird in a tree is never afraid of the branch breaking because its trust is in its own wings." Let that sink in for a second. If you dig deep and create and know your self-worth, if you build strong resilience, and when you know your purpose is within, you have some pretty strong wings, my friend. So, today, my dad is happy, healthy, mentally strong, cancer-free. I get to work alongside some of the most amazing people you can ever meet. So I spent all this time trying to figure out how to impact people's lives. And we did this not directly, but indirectly, you see. And now I get to take that impact that I created with my one business and touch many other people that makes the big impact. And I tell you what, to know that there's another level of impact that you can make is probably the most fulfilling thing you could ever encounter. So I couldn't be happier, but I want to leave you with one thing today. If nothing else you heard, embrace whatever roller coaster ride you're on today and that you're about to get onto. Do the hard work. Do it. You can get around it, but it's not going to help you. And last but not least, friends, believe in your own wings. Thank you.